Hey y'all, I am here with another Science Simplified. I get so excited over these, honestly, just because I'm excited, because when it first started it was just like my idea and I was like, this is gonna be good, and then I've posted a few of them and everyone's loving them, so it's making me even happier that you guys love them. So I am really pumped about this one too, because I think it's gonna be so applicable to you guys, and it's another one that is open access, which is super cool. So the past two that I've done, if you haven't checked them out, definitely check them out. They both in the description have the link to the full text. So again, I don't expect everyone to go read them, but if you want to, you have the option to download them for free, and this one is also the same way. So drum roll. Metabolic Adaptation to Weight Loss, Implications for the Athlete. So this is written by Eric Trexler, who's a really awesome guy. He's at Abby Smith Ryan's lab up in UNC. We know them very well. They are great people, and he's somebody who does bodybuilding and is very interested in this. Abby has competed before too, so this was basically aimed at low body fat athletes, i.e. physique athletes. So that's really cool. I'm gonna try to do, of course, as many of these types of papers as I can for you guys. Unfortunately, there's really not that many papers that have this in mind, have this kind of a voice. Most people aren't thinking of stuff from a super low body fat athlete perspective. And even most of these sites aren't necessarily from other the study isn't citing other like physique athletes like studies. So again, something to keep in mind, but it is written in that fashion, and it's really easy to digest, I believe, in my opinion. There's one part that's a little even kind of confusing for me, to be honest, but besides that, everything else is pretty easy digested. I think Eric did a great job writing it, and this paper has so many sites that I have used for my research personally and for different things that I've written. So, you know, that's why I love good review this is a review. That's why I love good review papers when you find them, because it's like a gem of stuff. So people will basically be talking about different things, and then you're like, oh, you know, citation 7, and then you'll go to the back and then you're like, oh, this sounds good, and then you read that and there's even more information. So really awesome paper. This was one of the most influential papers for at least like kind of pinpointing me in the right direction for my research. And also I just finished up writing my presentation, or putting together, I guess, my presentation for the Physique Summit. So another little blip on this, if you are, there's still time when I talk about this to register. So if you guys are near St. Louis or want to make a trip to St. Louis, Missouri for the Physique Summit, it is going to be an awesome weekend. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be a part of this. I am going to be the first female speaker, which is super cool, and I'm so happy that they asked me to do this. It's Cliff Wilson and John Gorman. It's actually going to be at First Form headquarters. So there's a whole list of amazing speakers that are going to be there, and I will be speaking too, which is fun. So it's 2 days. Go to physiquesummit.com and it'll tell you all this stuff. The prices are really awesome for the whole ticket too. So if you're close, or you can make a drive or make a trip, definitely do it, you guys. So let's get into this. So this was written under the premise of, you know, there's all these unfavorable adaptations when you diet, and we all know that they exist. A lot of stuff I'm talking about, like, you know, like hunger increases, you're like, yeah, hell yeah, it does. So these are all things that we know as far as like being documented, but this is, you know, put into kind of paper format. So there's all these disruptions to your body which make it, you know, hard while you're dieting, but also make it very easy to gain weight afterward, which is the really important part. So a lot of the research that I'm going to focus on for this series is, of course, stuff that I think is appropriate for you guys, for my audience, and a lot of it has to do with weight loss and weight regain, because that is the reality for a lot of us. And most people within the fitness industry are dieting at some point and then they're going to regain weight. And regaining weight is totally fine. I want to make that very clear. You cannot, for stage lean competitors, you need to gain weight. What we're talking about is that kind of rebounding effect where, you know, you gain 30 pounds in a week. Maybe that's not the most appropriate approach. So these are just, you know, the introduction kind of goes over all of this, and then, you know, all the stuff again that we know. There is a few case studies in here that they do cite. The one that's really, really important is the Chris Foss case study. They're all probably important, but that one was a male bodybuilder, and they looked at him for a whole year, every marker you could imagine. So again, get your hands on that if you can. That is, I believe, in here. Hold on. Oh, I have this paper. It is the first citation. Yeah, so it's the very first citation, and that is a 1 year long case study. of a bodybuilder, male bodybuilder. So I believe it was a 6-month diet and a 6-month recovery phase. So you got to see all the changes, which was super cool, and they documented it amazingly. So first, let's talk about the endocrine response. So all the different hormones that are related to dieting. For a lot of people, this may just be a refresher, and you may be like, oh, I already knew that, but I think this is just kind of a cool way of breaking it down in a really practical perspective, all the things that are affecting us. So T3 is a really important, of course, thyroid hormone, and that has a direct role in regulating metabolic rate. So lower thyroid levels you have decreased thermogenesis and overall metabolic rate. So that goes down while dieting. So number one thing. Not good. Leptin, which is a hormone that is synthesized within the adipocytes, which is their fat cells. And this is an indicator of this short-term and long-term energy availability. So when you're dieting and your energy reserves are going down, your body fat's going down, your leptin is going to go down too, right? And the problem with that is that leptin helps with satiety and energy expenditure. So when you have lower levels of leptin because you have lower body fat levels, your body is naturally hungrier, or it's suppressed with, I guess I don't want to say hunger because ghrelin is like the hunger hormone, but leptin would be fullness, but fullness is inhibited. So it's the same outcome, right? So that goes down, leptin goes down. Insulin is something that is important with inhibiting muscle protein breakdown. So that is why it's great to take, that's why having carbs after training is really important, because the insulin spike. And then also similar kind of to leptin is it's this message of like energy availability. So as you get leaner, your energy availability goes down and your body's kind of like, oh my gosh, think of it from an evolutionary standpoint, like, oh my gosh, what's going on? When's my next meal kind of a thing. Also, ghrelin increases. So unfortunately, which this stimulates appetite and food intake. So this is the part where I was like, everyone's gonna be like, oh, of course, I know that. So that's no fun. So leptin's going down, which helps with satiety. Ghrelin goes up, which increases hunger. And then also thyroid goes down, slowing down metabolic rate. Not good. Testosterone also goes down, which is a regulator, of course, for muscle mass. And so that goes down. Cortisol goes up. Not good. That is something that can also contribute to muscle protein breakdown, which is not very awesome for us, particularly because a lot of these issues are caused by losing lean body mass, not necessarily just body weight, but losing lean body mass can cause a lot of negative adaptations. So those are all the things that happen hormonally. On page 5, there's a really cool graph too. I love good graphs. So they're a great graphic just showing, again, what I talked about, but just in a very easy to digest way. And when there's all these changes with the endocrine levels, this is why you have such issues afterwards too. And because sometimes not even necessarily do you recover right away from this. So even if you diet and then you like have 2 weeks where you're eating whatever, you're like, oh, my body should be fine. Your body's not okay. It hasn't recovered all these endocrine disruptions, and that can be really, really powerful to your body. The next, he talks about metabolic rate and all the things involved with that. So metabolism is super dynamic, and we all know that, but there's more to it than just your resting metabolic rate. So there's all these different components. So the largest part, yes, is your RMR or BMR, basal metabolic rate, or RMR, which is resting metabolic rate. So weight loss always results in less metabolically active tissue, because you are going to lose some of that at some point. So that will decrease your BMR. So that's something to consider, and that is the largest component of your metabolism. But within that, there is a lot of other components too that we need to be concerned about. TEF, which is thermic effect of food. This encompasses everything with ingesting, absorbing, metabolizing, storing food intake. Now, this doesn't necessarily change as far as like a magnitude thing, but it does go down on absolute terms because you are typically eating less food. So that's something to consider. NEAT is one of the biggest things that we see, honestly. So NEAT would be non-exercise induced activity thermogenesis. So as you guys see in my videos, I cannot sit still. And you wouldn't think like, oh my God, that means your metabolism's going, but being active is something that decreases when you're dieting. Now, naturally, I'm a very, very bubbly, talk with my hands, I gotta move around, and that's just how I am. When I'm dieting, not like that. If you ever, I literally just watched a video from my 3rd show last year, which was a really awesome video. Thank you, Eric. And from my road to the show video, and we were doing interviews in between the show and kind of the morning of, and I literally was just like, so I was really excited today about, like, literally I was watching, I was like, this is like painful to watch. Like I looked like I was like dying and it was just, for a normal person it would look fine, but you guys, if you know me, like you see that I'm really excited and intense. So it, you know, that kind of stuff goes down. The fidgeting, the just extra movement, that sloth mode kind of engaged is your body's response to lowering NEAT. It doesn't want to expend any more calories when you're not eating enough. So that's something that a lot of people are nowadays arguing with as far as metabolic rate, and you know, the changes of like, okay, maybe it would make more sense to have like 200 more calories in your diet if you're going to be more active and maybe expend 300 more versus cutting it and then you're doing nothing all day. So just things to kind of, you know, take into consideration. Exercise, activity thermogenesis, EAT, also goes down too when you're dieting. There's also this theory of adaptive thermogenesis, which essentially is when I talked about, you know, you lose this metabolically active tissue and then your BMR goes down. What some literature says is that it goes down, the drop in the RMR and the TDE, which is your total daily energy intake. I'm trying to avoid all these acronyms because I don't and confuse anyone, but this excessive drop in TDEE, I really can't take myself seriously, often exceeds this predicted magnitude based on how much body weight and body mass that you've lost. So this is, again, another mechanism that is trying to promote, you know, your body to gain weight and go back to baseline. So everything, whether it's endocrine or metabolism, at this point your body is like, hey, we want to go back, we want to go back. And so this is what we're fighting against when we're dieting. Now this is the one part of the paper that gets a little bit, you know, a little bit sciencey, so I don't want to go too far into it because this is not as well studied maybe as the other mechanisms either, but it's talking about the adaptations in mitochondrial efficiency. So I will just kind of read a little bit of this, and that way you kind of get a background and I'm not paraphrasing. So here we go. Anaerobic metabolism. This process involves the movement of protons across the inner mitochondrial membrane. Mitochondria is where all the energy is produced. The powerhouse of the cell. Everyone's watching who has been, you know, all those memes where it's talking about like, oh, I'm glad I know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but I can't do taxes. Like, that honestly is so true. But anyways, in this part, it's important. When protons are transported by ATP synthase, ATP is produced. Protons may also leak across the inner membrane by the way of uncoupling proteins, UCPs. In this uncoupled respiration, energy substrate oxidation and oxygen consumption occur, but the process does not yield ATP. Proton leak is a significant contributor to energy expenditure, accounting for roughly 20 to 30% of BMR in rats. However, when you do reduce calories, this proton leak reduces. So again, this is another mechanism which is slowing things down, and the changes in the proton leak and the UCP expression in general and circulating hormones they appear to influence metabolic efficiency and energy expenditure. Now, this makes, you know, weight loss more challenging and promotes weight regain. Kind of like everything going back to, you want your metabolism to be inefficient. When it's efficient, it's working really, really easily. Your body's lazy. So if your body is getting more lazy, you're now not doing all these things to make it work harder, you know, with what we're talking about right now, which will, again, account for, you know, your body's trying to gain weight and not lose weight. But one study that I thought was really cool was, well, not cool, this sucks, but this was really interesting. Subjects identified as diet resistant showed decreased proton leak and UCP3, one of the UCP expression, compared to diet responsive subjects during maintenance of a reduced body weight. So there are showing that there may be some people who are more diet resistant versus other. So like that, I highlighted it and underlined it. I thought that was really cool. I'm gonna go and read that citation if I can find that study. I think that would be really awesome to look at. Again, these are not looking at regular, these are looking at regular people, most likely overweight people, not competitors, but it's still something I think that is really, really interesting to talk about. That whole concept needs more, you know, research, but still your metabolism is becoming more efficient, and that is definitely documented. So what I think is great about this review is that Eric introduces it, and then he goes into the science behind it, provides a ton of citations, but then also gives these practical applications for weight loss for athletes. So I think that is amazing, and shout out to Eric for that, because I just think a lot of people, the practical stuff is hard to write in the literature. He still cites different things, but particularly like weight loss for athletes. So like, this is just awesome, and that's why I'm really passionate about this article and talking to you guys about it. So it is one of the things that he suggests, which I see from a coaching perspective too. It's likely that the magnitude of these adaptations are proportional to the size of the energy deficit. So it is recommended to utilize the smallest possible deficit to yield appropriate weight loss. This may decrease the rate of weight loss, but attenuate unfavorable adaptations that challenge successful reduction of fat mass. So basically what he's saying is that when you have this really large energy deficit and it's really, really rapid, these adaptations can be more pronounced, and these adaptations are going to happen. When you diet, this stuff happens, right? But why not maybe spread it out so that the adaptations come on slower? And then when you diet slower, you're gonna preserve lean body mass, so that's something that's really important. But two, you may be more successful at actually losing more body fat in a more effective way, even though it might take longer. So that's why I'm a huge proponent of long diets. And I do think that it's also really, really, really important to take appropriately long off seasons too, because if you're always trying to, if you listen to this, if you're always trying to diet, and then this is going to happen. So you're dieting, and then you take a diet, and then you diet, and then it keeps going down and down and down. You have more of these adaptations built up. And then that's why I have people come to me and they're like, I don't know why I can't lose weight. We're trying everything. And I'm like, you can't just erase all of the past dieting. And I wish we could, but that's just not how it works. And again, there might be people who are more diet resistant than others. More research needs to be done on that, but that's another thing to consider. So taking the smallest amount and really looking at it, he says the word that I love to use, stepwise. So looking at things in a stepwise fashion. So when you plateau, maybe make a small change. Don't go, oh, you plateaued? Okay, well, we gotta cut 1,000 calories and you better go do, double cardio sessions. Like, not a good idea. You're going to plateau, so maybe do these in these stepwise, small fashion, so that it does kind of produce, you don't produce as many negative adaptations. So that's really cool. I'm glad that he talks about that, and it's something that I think is really, really practical, and something that I see, again, as a practitioner, a coach, and in myself too, as an athlete. And he also talks about refeeds, isn't really well studied, but it's in the literature. Consists of a brief overfeeding period where calories are increased slightly above maintenance levels, and it's either, it's predominantly carbohydrates are increased. And I talked about this in another video, actually it's before this, so go watch that if you haven't, about the different types of refeeds, not necessarily specifics, but typically it is carbs increasing at minimum, and then sometimes carbs and fats. Now, some interventions have shown from acute changes that leptin will go up, but the metabolic rate being affected hasn't really been shown. So from a science perspective, that's kind of like, that kind of sucks. Like, oh, the metabolism didn't go up, so why are we going to do this? But from again, we need more research, definitely, because there's not very much in here that he cites or that I'm aware of. But mostly, I think the refeeding has to do with the psychology behind it, the adherence after that, and also when you have a refeed, what they didn't study here was that the training is going to go up, and I think that's number one too. When you have more calories for maybe a day or two, and then you may be able to have another good training session or two, maybe really push in your cardio session, and that could maybe increase weight loss. So again, more research is needed, but from what he's saying, there seems to be a little bit of data on leptin, which is good, but then there's not really much on metabolic rate per se, like being measured. The last part that he really kind of goes over, which I think is awesome too. This whole paper is just so awesome. No, it really is. I really like how this is set up. But talking about, you diet for a long time, you have these really harsh adaptations to your body, and then you have these massive overfeedings where you may overshoot body fat. And how many times have we seen this, you guys, anecdotally, and just people, I got fatter from dieting, and, or even just body weight distributing differently after shows. And again, I'm talking about shows, but these are any kind of like low body fat level athletes. So, wrestlers, MMA fighters, gymnasts, things of that nature. So what he says is athletes who aggressively diet for a competitive season and rapidly regain weight may find it more challenging to achieve optimal body composition in subsequent seasons. So yes, if you rapidly pack on body fat, it can be more challenging to diet afterwards. And again, that's where you need those, think about things in a long-term fashion. Like, okay, when we diet, we're gonna give ourselves enough time so we can go slowly enough to where we are gonna see adaptations, but we can maybe get around some of them, or, you know, get to a period where we're maintaining lean body mass to a greater extent and we're seeing less adaptations. And then also, likewise, afterwards, you know, thinking in a, you know, stepwise fashion too of adding in calories. If you just done a show, you need to regain body fat. There's no way around it. I would not recommend extending that, you know, being in there for a very long time. But again, that 30 pounds in a week kind of overfeeding scenario, which is real. So that's what he's talking about, trying to avoid. So again, taking all these things into consideration, hopefully planning for the best off-season diet and post-diet periods. And then lastly, just the limitations. So I thought this was, you know, a good thing to go over too. A lot of this is done in overweight people. A lot of this is done in animal models, which give us a really great insight, but it's not necessarily insight to our population. But he does speculate, which actually a lot of other papers that I've seen too, well, they don't talk about, you know, physique competitors, but they talk about lean, like for normal weight lean people versus overweight, that if the adaptations in the obese population serve to conserve energy and attenuate weight loss as a survival mechanism, one might speculate that adaptations may be further augmented in a leaner, more athletic population. And I've seen that in other literature too, like I said. So just normal weight people may be more susceptible to these adaptations, just because, again, you're already at a far leaner state than maybe these obese people seeing these adaptations. So more research is definitely needed. More research is needed in refeeds and, you know, just the overfeeding periods and all these types of things. But this is an awesome review for all things metabolic related. I'm really excited that I got to talk about this one, and I hope you guys thought this was insightful. As always, I will put the direct link in the description, so if you want to read it for yourself, and I would encourage anyone to read this one. It is not, it is very easy to read. It is not too overwhelming, and there's a lot of great citations in here, and it's free. So hopefully this was helpful, y'all, and you're enjoying the series. Thank you so much for watching.